Hi, I'm your host, Larissa Werstiuk. On this podcast, I explore topics in digital marketing for jewelry designers and retailers, including branding, content, email, events, social media, and more. This is episode 73, and today I'll be sharing my interview with Marco Giovanelli. He's the CEO of Giovanelli Consulting, which is a business development and strategy consulting firm based in New York City. He's committed to helping luxury brands improve their value propositions, increase their profits, research new market possibilities, expand their product offerings, and more. Born and raised in Italy, where he earned a degree in mechanical engineering, Marco moved to New York at the age of 26 to establish a new professional career. He worked for 6 years as a sales manager in jewelry, traveling all over the world to all the industry trade shows before finally opening his consulting firm. Today, he provides support for luxury brands that need carefully evaluated plans for their short-term and long-term goals. In this episode, we focus mostly on the topic of omni-channel sales and marketing and why omni-channel is so important during this time of economic uncertainty. Some other topics include what is business consulting? How can today's luxury brands reshape their sales and marketing strategies by using technology in a thoughtful way? How can luxury retailers choose their sales channels in a strategic way instead of spreading themselves thin, and more? Before we get to the interview, I want to share some marketing-related articles and research with you. First, I love the article from Slate titled, "The Best, Worst, and Weirdest of the Random Coronavirus Emails We're All Getting from Brands." Over the past few weeks, you've probably had your inbox inundated with emails from brands you didn't even realize had your email address. Suddenly, brands that have been slacking on their email marketing campaigns are seizing the moment and sending you an email about how they're supporting you and what they're doing to address this coronavirus outbreak mess. Of course, every company is taking the situation very seriously. And on one hand, I really can't blame them for sending all these emails because in today's business climate, it almost seems kind of weird if a brand doesn't take a stance on a social issue. It's almost like, well, do they even care? Do they have an opinion? So I get it. But at the same time, it seems weird that they're using email, all of them, as the way to communicate with their customers, and they're all taking basically the same approach. I mean, all of these emails I'm getting look basically identical, and they're definitely getting lost in my inbox. I'm just sitting there clicking delete, 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 and not really even reading them. So I'm curious what you think about this. Have you sent a coronavirus-related email, or have you held back? Speaking of email marketing, I also want to touch on the topic of email marketing automation. If you do have a strategy for this in place, then you'll definitely want to check on your automations and make sure they're still appropriate. So if you're not familiar with email marketing automation, this is when a brand automatically sends an email to a customer after the customer takes a specific action or something has been triggered. So they're either abandoning a cart, making a purchase, or maybe they haven't interacted with the website in a while. So then that customer will get an email that has been pre-created. For the most part, marketing automation is really a set it and forget it process. So you may have set up an email automation like a year ago, 6 months ago, and you haven't really looked at it. And I mean, that's typical. That's the point. But when something like this happens and business is not quite as usual, you should definitely go back to your marketing automation and check that it's still appropriate and relevant. I know that I went into my MailChimp account yesterday just to make sure that everything I had automatically sending still made sense and wasn't offensive seeming. And just to give you an example, I saw an article from My Total Retail, where the author of the article was talking about an email he got from Spirit Airlines with the subject line, "Never a better time to fly." Well, Spirit Airlines, it's probably not a great time to fly, and you should probably pause those email marketing automations for the time being. So take that as a cautionary tale. Finally, Women's Wear Daily published an article called "Marketing in the Age of Coronavirus, the Do's and Many Don'ts." Ellen Niven, a branding communications expert, says that brands need to chill on all the promotional emails that they're sending specifically to customers who are stuck at home. I mean, which is everyone. So they're really taking advantage of the fact that people are just at home in front of their computers or whatever they're doing, surfing on their phones. She says, quote, "When people and companies start capitalizing on an opportunity like this, for the at-home shopper, it reeks of opportunism and strikes the wrong tone. People know they can shop online," end quote. I definitely agree, but I also don't want that to scare you off. I think that brands should not feel awkward about sending communications to their customers. They just have to do it in a really thoughtful and purposeful way. So before you send your next email, before you post your next post on social media, before you make any kind of interaction with your customer, ask yourself if it's really appropriate and relevant for the time period. And finally, I wanted to mention that if you missed my webinar last week, I'll be doing a repeat on Wednesday, April 1st at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern time. And the topic of the webinar is 5 ways to maintain jewelry marketing momentum during a global crisis. It's short and sweet, only 15 minutes long, so I won't keep you. And even if you're not free at that time, I invite you to sign up, and you'll still receive the recording and transcript afterward. And you can go to joyjoya.com/webinars to register. All right, let's jump right into my interview with Marco.
And omni-channel is not a new strategy if you think about it. If you have a business, the goal is to sell as much as you can to the most people that you want. So that's really the basic. And it's always been the same. If you were a baker in the 18th century, you were selling at your store and probably to your family. And that was your omni-channel because those were the channels available. That's really what it is. It's nothing new. It's a concept that seems more powerful because of digital access that we have these days, which is great, by the way. But at the same time, it's a territory that can easily be walked in the wrong way or with the wrong pace, in my opinion. Omni-channel I define, compared to multi-channel, as a cohesive group or point of contact between you and your customer, where you share a very well-defined message and you try to sell ultimately through the channel that you like the most. So if you're a person that finds this very comfortable being surrounded by your people, you use all the other channels that you have available, for instance, social media, website, marketplaces, to take your customer where you want to be. And I like that. I think it's efficient.
Definitely. Mm-hmm. I like that.
What is confusing is the multi-channel, where instead every chance you have to reach out to customer, you try to sell. And unless you are really big and you have a team that works for each individual channel, it's a recipe for disaster, because you try to sell on Instagram, you try to sell on Shopify, you try to sell on eBay, on Amazon, on the store, at the pop-up shop, and then you don't sell anything because you're doing too much, really.
Yeah.
And
it's so true.
Yeah.
So sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. I do want to give some background about you too, because I'm loving this conversation, but I want to start from the beginning, and then we can take it back.
Thank you.
So, But yeah, omni-channel, so overwhelming and very topical right now with everything that's going on in the economy. But I want to know about you and your background and your experience. So you work mostly with luxury brands, you consult with them. So what would you say makes you uniquely qualified to work with these brands, and like what do you bring to the table and what do
Well,
you
I
offer
think
them?
it can be, to answer your question, we have to look at the mission statement of the company that I open. There is a part where I say that I operate with an integration of problem solving skills and aesthetic vision of business. And in that sentence, there is everything about me. The operating problem skill that I use come from my background in engineering. So, yeah,
Interesting.
I've always been fascinated about solving problem on any aspect of life. And then in business, when I started working right after college, I always found myself in position where I had to solve problem of any kind, from fixing a machine to fixing information to customer, and the aesthetic vision of business come instead from my professional experience, really, in the jewelry industry. I've been involved for 7 years now, about 7 years in the industry. I'm Italian, and when I started working in the jewelry industry, I learned that a lot of aspect in handling problem can be done in a much more elegant way. That's what I try to offer to my customer, and that's the reason why I focus on luxury brand. We all somehow want to find a solution to problem, and I understand that. But there is a difference between doing it just for the sake of doing it and doing it with a purpose that has an aesthetic aspect. And that's what the luxury item I appreciate most of the way I work, really.
Yeah, because you're selling a lifestyle.
That's what it is, really. And if you think about luxury item itself, is it's something that challenge every brand, because when you put yourself in the luxury market, you want to be unique, you want to be special, you want to be different and rare to find. So even more, you appreciate the attention to details that comes with the way I work.
So I recently saw you did an Instagram post that answered the question, and I thought this was really brilliant. What is business consulting?
Yeah.
So I think that that can be a vague term, and a lot of times, even when I see it, I'm like, what does that mean? Because it can
Sure.
mean a lot of different things. So how would you describe it in your own words and how it relates to
Of
what you do with
course.
the luxury brands?
First of all, I think that the confusion comes from coaching and consulting. There is a lot of misunderstanding between these two kind of businesses, which are very different. To understand on an example that it's easy to see for all of us, think about you want to work out. You want to work out, you join a gym, you have a coach that tells you what you do. The coach doesn't really do much of the job. He just simply tells you how to move. A consultant, if that was the case, would be somebody that tell you what to do, build a gym around your needs, and start lifting weight with you to take you through to the goal that you want to achieve. That's what business consulting is for me. It's not just a support. By the end of the day, you do most of the job. We take and we carry the weight that you have for as long as you need it to reach a very specific goal. That's an efficient way to consult somebody. In other words, to jump into a company, quickly understand. And that's really what makes a difference, in my opinion, between a good consultant or not. You have to listen a lot to your clients first. So to be a business consultant, you have to listen. You have to be knowledgeable in the fields where they expect you to be. You have to find the strength to say no to some project if those are not good match, or if they're expecting from you too much that you cannot deliver, and then work side by side based on their needs to achieve a goal. If that works properly, it's a good start to build a relationship. So every time there is a problem that they cannot manage, it comes to you and you solve that problem.
Excellent. I mean, I love that analogy with the gym. I would never have thought of it that way, between the difference between a coach and a consultant. But it is.
And that's what was confusing, especially business consulting is a concept. And understand why. That's why I had the post, because I have a lot of people asking me, say, what's business consulting at the end of the day? And that's really what it is. It's a practical support to your operation for as long as you need it to solve a very specific project, with an extra opinion that comes from the outside. And think about, for instance, where we are right now. We're in a time that is decisions are made very emotionally, unfortunately. But emotion are controlling all our decisions right now. In a healthy economy, so let's pass through what we're going through right now. The same scenario happened somehow similarly, where a business owner, just because he owns a business, believes strongly, and that's beautiful, that everything makes sense. Sometimes you need an outside input and support to do things differently, maybe more efficiently. And ultimately, if you run a business and you're serious about it, other than the passion, you also understand that it's energy that you put in there with the goal to survive. So numbers cannot lie, and you shouldn't lie to your own numbers if you really want to be successful in your business.
Those are great points. So why do you in particular like working with luxury and jewelry brands as opposed to a different kind of business? I mean, even like engineering, since you have that background. What about luxury and jewelry really?
Well, two things. First, I partially mentioned earlier the attention to details. I'm obsessed with details, with small but significant differences in operation and products. So the luxury world in general stress a lot this component. And second, because it's a very creative world, especially on the smaller case, it's easy sometimes, if you run it, to see as a form of art, which is great, but it's lacking the business side that is a little more down to the ground, a little more basic that is needed. So when I opened my company, I was surrounded by jewelry designer, and I noticed these temporary needs of reorganize their business. And I say, well, that's a request from the market. You open a business because there is a request, otherwise there is no point. So say, that's a request. How can I bring that with my expertise? Well, my background forced me, even when I cook, to use at the best all the ingredients in the fridge just to make sure that I get the most out of it. So that can be a good addition that I can bring. And at the same time, I'm surrounded by people that actually appreciate details. So when we have a conversation, we have something meaningful that we share together. And that's what I can find in the luxury market.
Great. So let's circle back to Omni-Channel. We started talking about it a little bit at the beginning. I want to definitely focus this conversation because it's so relevant to right now in this moment that we're in the economy, talking about omni-channel sales and also spending some time talking about how it intersects with omni-channel marketing, which is similar but also different. So we talked about what omni-channel means to you. I'm curious about what are some of the benefits and drawbacks of omni-channel. So is it all good, or are there some negative aspects?
No, it's all good. Like everything everything comes from the past 20 years, since the beginning of the internet. I'm 37, so I lived before the internet and after, but we all changed the way we think, assuming that we can do everything, which is impossible. To master any skill, you need time, you need knowledge, and a click online doesn't solve that problem. So the drawback, which is challenging for most business, is FOMO, the fear of missing out, opportunity. So there's a channel, or I have to join this trade show, I have to join this marketplace. There was last year here in New York a boom in pop-up events, and there was this sense where, oh, if I don't go to these events, I'm gonna miss an opportunity because this is a great neighborhood, so this is a new place. It's impossible to do all of that. It's tempting.
Yeah. Especially when you see on social media that your competitors are doing those things, how can you not have FOMO?
That's very true, and I'm sure you see a lot when clients come to you for the marketing aspect. I'm assuming you get bombarded by questions like, "Oh, I want to be successful on all platforms." It's unrealistic.
Yeah.
Unless you are a huge player. If you are the LVMH group, you can do whatever, and I get it. But it's understood that this group invests millions. So, like anything, if you invest a lot, you get a lot back. Obviously, we want to do what others successful do, but we should never lose track of where we are. Because if we don't lose track, then we can really be successful for what we can. And then build from there. So, to answer your question on the omnichannel, sales or the omnichannel marketing, really, I believe that it's important to understand exactly who you are. What are you good at? Why people like you? Because at the end of the day, people like you for really what you are and not because you're trying to be somebody else. So simple, but so complicated to understand. But that's really what it is. Even before the influencer, actors or singer, they're definitely people with great skills, but mostly they're people that show the world who they are. That's simple.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So now we feel like we have to do everything, but it's not the case. I mentioned earlier, if you want to attack or try to reach customer or the market with different channels, there is nothing wrong with that, but invest wisely time and effort. And understand what the specific channel is made for. Because if you sell scarves that are for women in the late 50s and you try to be cool on TikTok, and probably it takes a while to even learn to be good at it because just record that.
Yeah, so why are you investing the time and effort? Yeah, absolutely.
What's the point?
I totally agree.
What's the point?
I totally agree. Yeah, it reminds me of a recent podcast episode I did about checklist marketing, which I did not coin that term, but I love it because it refers to brands that try to like check off all the boxes in their marketing. So they think, you know, I need to be on all of these platforms. I need to be doing all these kinds of events, all of these things, ads, blah, blah, blah. I mean, yeah, you can try to do all of that, but is it your best use of time, money, and energy? Definitely not. Absolutely not. So I think that's where the sales and marketing intersect, that you have to be really choosy about which platforms you're adopting, because otherwise it's just
it is. And marketing, it's all the strategy that comes before sales. Marketing is a way for you to send a message. With the message delivered, you come with your sales team and make a sale. So absolutely, I enjoy very much your podcast, by the way, as I'm enjoying all the episodes. So I definitely listened to the previous one and agree. And I think in jewelry, and tell me if you have the same sense, there is a request from clients where, oh, I want to be great. I want to do great stories. All right, what are you doing today? Oh, I'm on a bench. Okay, so what kind of story? Yeah, I want to be a story on a cocktail party. But if you're on a bench, how can you do that? You know?
Yeah, I would say 99% of the time, the thing that a client comes to me for is not the thing we end up doing because we decide it's not actually the right thing for them. But I don't blame them in any way. I mean, they got that idea from somewhere, and it's they have like a good intention behind that, but they haven't necessarily thought about their true needs.
Absolutely. And if we want to go back, not because I talk a lot, but it's one of the topics. I like food, wine, and try to live a healthy way. But if you think about what I said before about working out, it's like join a gym and expect to do 20 pull-ups. Start with the basic. Start with what you are right now. That's something that I stress a lot. I'm sure I like the part of you where you take your clients and you direct them where they should focus on. And I do the same with the business. It's tempting to lose track of what's really important because there is so much. By the end of the day, a great skill that a business owner of any level, luxury and non-luxury, must have is being realistic. And build from there.
Yeah. So true. I'm clapping.
Realistic is it's fundamental. It's not lowering your expectation, but it's building from solid foundation. And last time I checked, unless you have solid foundation, you don't build anything. So business is the same.
Yeah. So you mentioned when you were talking about when we were talking about benefits and drawbacks, you were saying a lot of the bigger brands can afford to like expand their omni-channel because they have the money to be on all these platforms. But what about scalability? I mean, is this something that's scalable for a small business that might even be just a one-person team? How does someone like that?
Well, there are two ways for me to do it. For me to see this opportunity for a smaller business. First, if they can get to a stable and healthy financial position, rely on professional like you focus on digital marketing. Well, I have that support so I can expand with people that I might pay a little bit more first, but at least they know what they're doing. If that's not the case yet because business is brand new, because you're just working on everything, well, start with goals that are actually achievable. And if the first goal achievable is to understand what filters works better with your jewelry, then you understand that it takes 2 weeks on a Saturday morning for an hour to do that. And build that. I am all about exploring all the channels, but giving the right weight and understanding what you gain back. If learning a new social media strategy doesn't get me anything back, and I can use half of that time instead to make a quick sales or to build a piece of jewelry on a bench, well, do that instead and readjust. Don't stay still, keep moving for what you can, and little by little you will manage to get everything. It takes time. That's really what it is. Big brands do it because resources, but they're faster because of that. It just takes a little longer. And try to stay updated. Select, keep track. So keep track, keep looking at goals, and if you cannot achieve them, try to understand why, and don't be afraid. If you're small, especially if you're small, to just enjoy the mistake and say, okay, I know that's not where I should focus. I should focus somewhere else. It's a costly choice, I understand. By my opinion, if you start a business and you want to really be successful, you already planned that part of costly sacrifices. And that's really how you build it, with motivation, determination, and clear goal, very simple goal, and see what they bring.
All great points. So I think, and I'm sure you would agree with me, that consistency is one of the most important things to have a successful omni-channel sales and marketing strategy. So in your opinion, what are some ways that brands can stay consistent?
I'll give you one, I share with you this, that I share already when I started my company a while back, about a year ago. Write down, if you own a business, your mission statement. And when I tell you write down a mission statement, I want to hear in one and a half sentence everything about what you do, how you do it, for who you do it. If you start telling me a lot of things, you're not clear. So take this concept and apply with the omni-channel. Start with one basic description of everything about you as a brand, as a company, and apply this concept to the channel that you want to approach, to the digital marketing that strategy that you want to follow. But be clear on what on what you're doing really. That's if you don't have the balance, and again, I'm not saying it's easy because we think we know ourselves so well that we don't have to explain it to ourselves. But we do. Mm-hmm. And when it's a business, it's not even us anymore, especially single business owner like me. I start running my company already assuming that I will have a team, which is the final goal of my company, by the way. But from day one, I always work as a team because I cannot assume that I know what I'm talking about. Because when people ask me mm-hmm. about it, they cannot read my mind. The same is with a jewelry brand, with a fashion brand, with a real estate. Why are you doing what you do? For who you do? Be selective. And that will give you a lot of direction for all the channels that you're trying to approach, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all great points. And I think you were kind of starting to touch on this too. I think it's important to be open to letting it evolve.
Absolutely.
As well over time.
In your podcast, you mentioned the SMART goals, which are crucial and important for every business. But there is also an evolution to that where you have to evaluate the goals and readjust so you can make your goal even smarter. That's another strategy where you take all the aspects and you evaluate and readjust, because that's what it is. Otherwise we will be machine, but we are not. And being focused on these steps and regularly checking on yourself brings result on the long term, in my opinion. I'm a strong believer there.
I love everything you'd had to say. So I want to shift a little bit and talk about technology and technology's role in Omni-Channel. So how can luxury brands take advantage of technology? And again, I want to talk about this in like a scalable way. So brands of all sizes. And where should they really be starting with technology if they want to improve their Omni-Channel?
Technology, well, there are so many options right now. If you want to start with the basic, before anything else, at the end of the day, a website is still, in my opinion, the first step to offer. Not necessarily to sell, by the way, but to create a starting point in this digital world where everything starts from one single point. So the website will be the first one, which is pretty doable for everybody, really. There are so many platforms that support this building a website, or even you can rely on outside help, and it's fairly inexpensive by now. And then build it from there, understanding how the technology brings a benefit. So if you have absolutely no space, no physical space, build the online sale experience. And it's not just adding a link. A link, everybody can do it, and it's the last part. But make sure to build an experience through your website that makes customer to get to that link and to actually click on buy. From there, you can expand on outer sources like marketplaces where you present your brand that are already big, but because they are big and there are so many competitors, if you approach them with a solid website, it's easier to drive traffic. And then again, the goal is to reach the click. social media, little by little, exploring all the options. If you really evolve and if you really build on this, and if you really don't believe in selling on physically but just digitally, you can even find people that build an app around your brand. Some are expensive, some are not. But I work with a terrific company in Dumbo, and they build app for brands to really create a whole world around your brand at any level. So the digital options are a lot. Just understand exactly what is best for you right now, and then expand. I was curious actually to see if this is what, in your opinion, your clients do, or they come with every piece a little bit gathered and spread all over, and they ask you to fix it together.
It's kind of both. I do work with people that are a little bit scattered in their presence and they just need more cohesion, or they need to like edit things. They need to delete, some of their channels, or they forget that they even have some channels, honestly. So then it's about focusing on the ones that are the most profitable and that are providing the best customer experience. And then how can we build on that rather than start from scratch? So let's take what's already working and make it even better. And then I have some people that are really already starting from scratch. And that is actually the most exciting to me because I have a chance to guide them really from the beginning.
So do you think that the majority that get in touch with you, they mostly see the online shopping as the only channel? And I say this because as you offer digital marketing services, I wonder if they just automatically associate, if I work with Larissa, I will only can sell online because that's what I want to do. Or there are still people that integrate the digital experience with actual physical stores.
I would say most of the people that come to me aren't even thinking about physical retail because they think it's dead.
What do you think? What do you think?
What was that? I don't think it's dead. I think actually it's going to have a renaissance soon if it isn't already, because especially for luxury and jewelry, because people want to touch things. They want to have an even enhanced customer experience. And I do want to talk more about that term in a little bit. And I think physical retail allows you to have that in such a more enhanced way. I mean, obviously now that we're all stuck at home, people are going to e-commerce and they're excited about that because it gives them an opportunity to experience brands and to shop without having to leave their house. But we can't live in isolation forever. I believe another frustration, though, is not only that they think physical retail is dead or dying, but also because I think that wholesale is becoming more challenging. So when I work with designers that are trying to pursue a wholesale strategy, they don't really know how to go about that. And it's super competitive. And a lot of stores now will only do consignment, and they don't want to make that, investment to just give a piece to a store on consignment. So I do think that there are a lot of moving pieces involved.
Before this whole situation started, I was reading, I think at the beginning of February, I might be wrong a few days, but an article where Generation Z, the one that we associate with cell phone and internet and everything else, social media, and just being isolated at home, they did a study, I believe, in England, but don't quote me for that, I might be wrong, where they took a sample of population, and most of them, they are putting social media away from their regular life. And that makes a lot of sense. We're human beings first. So we need interaction. That's how we are built. It is not something that comes in the past 20 years. That's something that comes from centuries. So that's how we are wired in our mind. And what made me think back then is actually that the retail space that now seems to focus, in my opinion, there is this idea where, well, we still stay open because people, millennials, I'm technically a millennial, 30, late 30, 40, 50, they still like the shop and we try as long as we can. On the contrary, there will be soon a huge request from the youngest. They don't know what it means to actually go to the store and interact in person, and they will crave it, and they will happily pay for it. Especially on the luxury side of the market, they will appreciate the human interaction that is happening. And that will revolutionize everything that is happening right now, where we cannot just go all the way in one direction. It's like diet. Like first carbs are bad, then fats are bad, then fats are good. Come on. Let's keep it simple. Let's keep it simple. Everything in moderation has its own benefits. Some more than others. I'm a big proposer of technology. I'm absolutely, in time like this, it's incredibly helpful. At the same time, I had a conversation right before this where with another professional in the jewelry industry, we discussed and says, well, after being stuck for days at home, people will just want to go out just because that's their call. And that's when retail stores will have a big request from people that just want to interact and feel stuff and say, okay, I'm happy to buy this, but they will do it. Because that's our nature, really. So for any new brand, I will say, don't get too involved completely in one direction. Keep in mind that business is relationship, but relationships are built on human relationship, and choose wisely your direction and you'll be successful. If instead you try to put all yourself in one direction only, there might be some drawback sooner or later. As if you just stay old school and you believe that you're a retail store and that's the only way, you don't believe in the internet, I don't know why, but if you want to do that, again, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's just too much. So that's one of the tricky part that, in my opinion, require people to be wise in their choices.
Absolutely. And I think the whole like death of brick and mortar retail is just like, one, it's a enticing headline that the media can like pick up on, and it's also an excuse that some of these more legacy brands can use to say like, oh, our sales are down, well, it must be that no one wants to go to stores anymore. But that's just like an excuse, you know. It just means that you're not innovating, that you're not considering the customer experience, and you're not thinking about the new ways that people shop, and that takes all the channels.
Absolutely. And I like that you say innovation. Innovation is key. And if before you could innovate any X year, the more we go, the faster it will be the cycle where you just have to be ready to change and innovate based on the request, simply because now we have opportunities that are incredibly fast. So not only you need to be skillful and unique, but thirdly, and equally important, you have to have a mindset ready to adjust quickly and keep consistent with your message. And again, I believe that if you know who you are, you can succeed. You have to be patient at first, but that's the way to go, really.
Definitely. So we mentioned customer experience a few times, and it's something that I've been personally very interested in lately because I like thinking about all the different ways that a brand can provide a customer experience, especially digitally. It seems weird. Like in a physical store, it's easy to think about what
Sure.
customer experience means. You have people helping you, they're nice, the store is clean, it's well merchandised, it's easy to find your size, whatever you're looking for, whatever it is. A way to make the customer feel really welcomed, as if they're coming into your home as a guest. But that's not so clear online. I think it gets like a little bit weird, because how do you welcome someone into your like online
Sure.
home, you know? So what are your thoughts about customer experience online, and do you have any suggestions for brands that are looking for ways to make their customer experience better?
Online, the experience can happen in two ways. And again, depends how much time and effort you can put in there, but that's really, in my opinion, what you can do. The first is interacting, having open conversation with your customer. That's easier on social media. For instance, creating live events, live story, where you take one single ring. That's not a ring, but one single ring, and you schedule weekly appointment or whatever schedule you want to have, where you build this ring along with whoever wants to watch you. So you stay there and you answer questions while you work. That's a way to take the customer inside your workshop, especially if you're very little, if you work from home. That's a great way for me to interact, to have that kind of experience. If you look at the website, the answer is already there, in my opinion. Blogs on a website was the way we used to interact with customer before there was social media. So back then, a blog was a personal opinion, topic, point of view, whatever you want to call it, where you take your customer and you give it your own opinion. And what's brilliant right now is that you can easily add a comment part where people can ask you about it. Another way to experience is the whole process. Sustainability is one of the key words in the luxury market for the next 10 years. It means everything, it means nothing until it's proved. So the experience is to literally take your customer through what makes you use the word sustainable for whatever level you can. If you cannot guarantee the origin of your diamonds or gold or minerals or anything else, match certain standard, start small. Say, okay, we are not there yet, but we try to do a little part, and you write a blog about how you recycle in your office. People want to know why you use this fancy word. And they expect you. And the more we go forward, the more educated consumers are. And you cannot lie to them just with fancy label. You have to prove that you're actually doing something in that direction. Perfection doesn't happen for anybody. So let's make that clear. Nobody's completely 100% sustainable. I have a beautiful conversation with a designer that have been working in a sustainable way for years, and they admitted that we're far away from perfection, but that's impossible to achieve. But we've been doing this for 10 years, 20 years, and that's fine. You have to be transparent with your customer, and that's the way you can create an experience around your brand on a simple level. Again, you can write a blog and simply share your thoughts on what's happening. That's a way to create something, to create interest. You can focus a little bit more on one specific social media and tell them why you name your brand whatever name you have. Where's Joya come from, by the way?
So, I mean, Joya is jewelry in Spanish. And I just like that it has the word joy in it, because I like to think I'm a joyful person.
You definitely are. Even with the distance, even on Skype, you pass that energy. So that's great. All right. My name is, it's easy to guess. I mean, more than putting my last name and consulting, I keep it basic. But yeah, that's I don't have much to say that. And I'm not even pretending that I have to say much about it. That's what it is, really. But at the same time,
It's
Time,
very straightforward.
the experience that I'm building on my website, which by the way is different from a brand that actually has a product, in my company name there is my last name. Not because it's just me, because again, there will be a team, but because the last name includes everything that comes with the way I want to run this operation. And if you look at my website, I start telling a story about me being 7 years old and teaching mathematics to my classmate and solving a problem back then. That's a real proof that what the name stands for is actually valid. It doesn't have to be complicated. I'm not pretending.
Yeah, and it shows that you take pride in it too, because you're willing to put your name on it and you're willing to put your reputation on the line.
Absolutely.
That's really important.
As a matter of fact, you also mentioned earlier what's a business consultant. It's one that can build a reputation based on honesty. And I mentioned earlier, sometimes honesty means saying no, I'm not doing much. That's fine. It's as long as there is quality rather than quantity, I believe results comes. Sometimes it's easier to be misled because you just see quantity and you just fear that you're missing. That's okay. Keep your balance, continue in that direction, and you will find your way.
So Marco, what else do your clients like most about working with you? Seems like you're honest and you value transparency, and I like how you equated that with customer experience.
Well, I can tell you what they don't like. Me following up as planned. So I guess that's the quality that when we complete a project is actually one of my greatest feedback when they tell me you actually follow and put me to follow what we plan. So they like the discipline, really.
I think we share that in common. If you talk to anyone I work with, they would probably say I'm really annoying, but at the end of the day, they like it.
At the end of the day, that's what it is. I mean, if you really want to be dramatic, I'm not supposed to be a pleasant judge of what we do. Supposed to be an objective judge. So I have to take you back. I have to follow through some schedule. I have to like your business long-term plan because that's your identity. So absolutely. But I have to be confident in sharing an opinion that sometimes is a little disturbing, but with a purpose. It's not just a judgment. I don't judge. I have not judged. That's another thing. And one other aspect is I'm detached from the business. So I'm able to give objective based on what it is. I don't have a very strong opinion about a particular piece of jewelry, a particular piece of fashion. I just try to understand why it's made that way, put on the side any like or don't like for personal, and just focus on the business side. So that's what I think it's a great compliment when they say, well, you're really objective, and at the end of the day, you're a pain in the butt when you call me, but I need that. So I'm glad to offer that.
I like it. So how can our listeners find you and start working with you if they're interested in getting annoyed by you?
Well, I also am a little fun. I hope. Definitely in New York, I'm involved with the WJA. It's a Women Jewelry Association. I'm involved with the event committee, and once this whole situation is solved, we're building different events through the years with educational purpose, networking purpose, or even just expansion of business. So I'll be at all of those. I try to visit selective networking events or trade shows in the industry and industry of the luxury in general. So jewelry, fashion, real estate, traveling, etc. They're more than welcome to visit my website, giovanelliconsulting.com. It's very hard to spell. If you have it on YouTube where my name is, otherwise I can just... Okay, perfect. And if they get it right, they'll automatically learn Italian, because if you say my last name correctly, you already are on a good way to learn Italian. I guarantee that. And then I'm on social media. It's not my primary point of contact, but I'm also there. I share tips on common business topics that are helpful at any level. So they're more than happy to welcome to ask me questions if they have.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. You had so much wisdom to share about omni-channel and customer experience, which are two things that are so important right now in our economic climate. So I love that this is very, very relevant, and I hope that our listeners and viewers
absolutely. It has been my pleasure, and I hope that all those that will enjoy this video and podcast will understand that keeping calm and adjusting is the right move to fully use the omni-channel opportunity that are there for everybody. And I hope we all go back to business successfully, you, me, and all of those that are listening right now. Larissa, my pleasure. Talk very soon. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Ciao.
It was such a pleasure to be able to talk to Marco and hear more about what he had to say about omni-channel sales and marketing. Be sure to visit the Giovanelli Consulting website at giovanelliconsulting.com. That's Giovanelli consulting.com to learn more about him and his luxury business consulting services. I look forward to sharing more interviews with you in the future.